we go, ladies and gentlemen. The Sounder Says, Interesting Ideas is back on the air on this Monday evening. Truly one of the significant creations of the last few years. Independent, individual, personal, on-demand radio. iPod, radio, podcasting, personal on-demand. That means, literally, right here in a small studio with just a small piece of equipment and a rather good microphone, but not very expensive, I can talk to people all over the world, and they can listen on any device they have, maybe even a radio. And we can hopefully build a relationship and have a bit of a conversation that counts, is somewhat worthwhile. Well, you've been up for a busy day. It's been a shake-up week. So if I can talk a little bit about what I think might be helpful to you, and then perhaps just give us some thoughts about how we can live better long term. I'm Stan Houston. The program is Interesting Ideas, and it begins right now. And indeed, we're back. Now, just to show you a little bit of how things have actually happened, just to get a proportion. You know, what was true is when I began radio, you had this 6-inch reel of recording tape. Some of you know what I'm talking about. It was 6 inches, and it went on what was called a reel-to-reel tape recorder, and it was brown tape about a 1/4 inch wide, and that's how you recorded everything. That's how you did it. And on that 6-inch reel, you could record a 30-minute program and do it quite well. In fact, I've done hundreds, maybe thousands of programs on a reel-to-reel tape recorder, which of course now are total antiques. And you can buy them on eBay or obviously in some used facility. They're never made, never used anymore. The expression used to be, and we still use it, we say, tapes rolling. And when we said tapes rolling, that meant the microphone was on and the recording has begun and you can talk now. Well, I just checked, and this is not recorded, obviously, on a reel-to-reel tape recorder. It is recorded on a little SD card about the size, maybe a little bit smaller than my thumbnail. It's about that size, and it's about, maybe a 1/16 of an inch thick. And it told me that I had used up some space, and now I only had 13 hours left of recording time. So I could go on for 13 minutes. No, 13 hours of recording time left. That's hard to believe. But that's what they can do these days. So it's truly changed. And here we are. What can we do with this technology that would make the world better? And that's part of the deal we're in. How can we use this technology to make the world a little bit better? And I would love to hear you join in on that conversation. How can we use this stuff to make things better? Of course, the world is rocking and rolling. The situation here in America, and I'm sure it is already catching, at least in some of the news of the world, is that one of the major banks, I mean a big bank that had lots and lots of money in it, just went broke. And that happened just at the end of the week. And the federal government had to move in and close it down. And it could be that millions and billions of dollars could be lost. However, then the government stepped in with President Biden saying, hey, Don't worry. Now, whenever someone says, don't worry, worry. Not that it does any good, but I'm always suspicious of that. And then he informed that the government would make sure that nobody would lose their money, that all the money that was lost, somehow you'll get it back. Now, how's that going to happen? Well, then we were assured that no taxpayers, no government tax money will be used to, pay the depositors back. Well, that's not really true. It can't be, because what they then said is we are going to go to all of the remaining banks and make them pay for it. They're going to have to chip in to this big, what's called a Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation fund. And it is that money from the other banks that didn't go bankrupt that we will use to pay off the people who had their money in the bankrupt banks. And it went from one, now it's two, and I guess there's three, and people are afraid that this is contagious, and all of a sudden we could have many banks in that situation, because that's kind of the way things are working. Now, to say I, as a taxpayer, am not going to have to pay for it, here's what will happen. Obviously, that small bank that I bank at, if their rates for the insurance are going to be raised, guess what they're going to do? Well, they're going to raise the rates on me. And the credit card bank company, guess what they're going to do? They're going to raise the rates on my credit card. And so what? It means that I really will be paying for those banks that went bankrupt. And of course, again, you just shake your head and say, are there any good guys left anymore? Here we discover, yep, the executives of those banks, as they knew that things were getting bad, guess what they did? Of course, they sold their stock. And they gave big bonuses to all of the other people in the circle of leadership in the bank. And so everybody got their out, and everybody got their bonus, and now everybody is stuck with what they did. Is anybody going to be punished? Is anybody going to go to jail? Probably not. Not fair. But as I oftentimes say, I'm reluctantly going to have to tell you that fair is not a discussion that we have after the 6th grade. We try and keep the world basically fair until then, but after that, it is not a fair world. As Jesus said, you will have troubles. And obviously, he should know. A man of perfection is run out and obviously crucified. It gave meaning to a new word that I heard. I had never heard it before. And it was called the mobjority. The mobjority. And great word. Because we oftentimes say, well, the majority of people believe in it or want it. Therefore, it must be good if it's the will of the majority. Well, the majority could be just a crazy mob too, and they could be in the majority. And so, essentially, it's still mob rule. It's just that there's a lot of people in the mob. Mobjority. What do we do? And what are you going to do? That's 9 minutes, and so I'm going to quit soon, but I did have. It was helpful. Just this past Sunday, the kind of interim pastor at the church we are now going turned out to be not only a man of great wisdom, but he had a long-term and had a significant role as a chaplain in the armed forces. And so he not only is a man of God's word, but obviously dealing with men and women who are in difficult situations. And I'd like to talk to them about, how do you, these are men and women who are trained to be warriors, and they do risky and dangerous and sometimes stupid things. How do you work as a spiritual counselor and consultant and pastor and helper, particularly to men and women who live dangerously? And how do you help them? Well, he had a unique little quote, and I just want to try and finish up with it because it's kind of helpful to me. So this is to Chaplain Steve, and let me just tell you what he said. I'm Stan Houston. The program is Interesting Ideas, and this is a Monday evening getting ready to try and make it through the week. We'll be back. One of the great thinkers and philosophers and really a psychologist, all of them are controversial. Some of them are crazy. But a lot of them, particularly in the past, not much right now, I'm afraid, but at least make sense. And Carl Jung was one of them. A man of spirit. Now, whether he was spiritual or religious, I don't know. But my wife and I have, in fact, right now it's right next to the studio. Yeah, it's right. I can see it right now. There it is. But it's very important in our home. We've always kept it for a while. And it said simply this: bidden or not, God is present. Bidden or not, God is present. And that's been something that a number of times when we've gone through some real difficulties, and particularly with our family and situations that have just kind of almost broke us in two, we go there. Bidden or not, God is present. Well, what Pastor Steve did is, this was a quote I hadn't heard before. He said this: for the most part, we don't solve our problems. We're in the business, we think, of problem solution. Well, obviously, if that's the business most of us are in, we're not very good at it. It's hard to solve problems, particularly the problems that are of the human condition, of the human spirit. I can go in. Sometimes it's hard enough. I can get my car, that problem, fixed with a good mechanic, hopefully. And, of course, what I really want to emphasize is that going to college and university doesn't make you much of a problem solver. It's the man who fixes the air conditioner. It's that wonderful guy who I trust who fixes my automobile. It is the young man who knew exactly how to fix my water heater. Those are the people who should be honored. They're very much like what Jesus, we think, is a kind of a craftsman and perhaps even a handyman, a fixer, a repairer, certainly a man who worked with his hands and made his living by doing simple, helpful, useful, practical things. And in his spare time, he began to think great thoughts and discover his relationship to God. And then probably while he still was working, he began to speak what becomes to us as we believe the very Word of God. We don't solve problems, but you know what? We can outgrow them. That's right. Yeah. You see, if we start to grow up, which most people, as the famous Walter Lippmann of the early 20th century said, he said, everybody grows older, but very few of us grow up. He simply points out that full maturity is a rare quality. And as I would say, maturity with mastery and a sense of an openness to mystery is a great quality. But we can outgrow them. And what he means by that, I think, is that eventually we began to see that what we thought was a problem, and that in the vast expanse of who we are and what we are about, we simply view them, it's not really a problem anymore. It doesn't bother me anymore. It's not that important anymore. And I thought about that. So many things that I have considered problems. And even the fact that I still have those problems, I understand that I can't and do not have to solve them. But with God's grace, perhaps I can begin to have greater peace of mind as I outgrow them. Closing thought on Monday evening. Yeah, I've got a number of problems I have to, quote, solve. But more and more, I'm realizing that I won't solve them. I might be able to do a little repair on them and a little tweaking on them. But for the most part, the important ones, it's just that I have to learn to live in both grace and mercy and mastery, and I have to outgrow them. I'm Stan Houston. Just a thought for a Monday evening. I'll be back. And thank you very much. And hopefully the fact that I needed a new chair to help my wife be much more comfortable as she's going through so much medical situations. Hopefully the delivery man will be here soon, and at least a part of the problem will be relieved. She will have a comfortable new chair to help her deal with her difficulties. And for that, I am grateful. And I'm going to thank him profoundly for doing that. He'll be hopefully a big, strong young man who will help bring it up the steps. And I plan to give him a very, very healthy tip for him and maybe his family. Reach out to me if I can be helpful to you. And more important, I'd like you to join me in this project of trying to help the world live better with interesting ideas. Hopefully use the ideas for greater influence, greater impact, greater insight, and maybe greater income. StanHouston@gmail.com, StanHouston@gmail.com. Hope to see you around this week, and bye for now.